Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my week 36 reading wrap-up. If you don't know, I do weekly wrap-ups here where I talk about every single book that I've read during the year. So you can check out my playlist for that if you'd like to know about every single book that I have read. If you've seen me mention it on Instagram or in a different video, I probably have it in that list. So we are going to dive into this. First, we're going to be starting off with the new members and patrons that I have to welcome. If you also don't know, I do full-time YouTube and reviewing and content creating. I do that full-time, and it's only because of my members and patrons that I'm able to do that, of course, as well as everyone who watches, but the most significant part of my income is coming from those places. So we have a new channel member to welcome. Ashley P joined the channel memberships as a sassy supporter, so thank you, Ashley. Every little bit helps me, and that means so much that you would do that for me. And then for patrons, we have Nikki, Michelle Lim, and Elena Pereira, who joined my Patreon. So thank you so much for doing that. If you would like to support me here, those links are listed down below. But let us get started. We have 11 books to talk about, 10 that I read and one that I DNF'd because I haven't had a DNF in a long time, but I did have one this week. Couple things before I go because people like to comment on them, so I comment first to, obscure any issues we might have. Number one, if you see me looking down, it's because I have my notes on all of my books down here, so that I can properly share like the rating and the spice rating and the trigger warnings that I might have. I write them all down. Number two, I know that this is going to bug some people, but I've had to make a change for how I like display the books that I'm talking about, because you'll know most of these books I read them on ebook or I don't have a physical copy yet, so I have to put up a picture. I've recently realized how big my video files are getting when I show a book the entire time I talk about it. So I'm going to show the book when I start talking about it, probably for like 15 seconds, and then it won't be up there anymore. I know, I'm sorry. I wish I could hold it up the whole time, but my video files are getting ridiculously large. Okay, ridiculously large. But every book that I've read, I have listed in the description along with a affiliate link to get it on Amazon. If you purchase using my link, I do get a small kickback from Amazon, a teeny tiny little bit for recommending it to you. But yeah, if I've mentioned a book and now I'm talking about it and you don't know what I'm talking about because the picture's not up there, it is listed down below. I have them all listed, so you don't have to worry. You just gotta, go ahead and open the description box and it's right there. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and dive in. So the first book that I read last week was The Girlfriend by Noelle Adams. This was an arc. I think this book comes out on the 21st. I didn't write that in my notes. I apologize. Also, if you didn't know, Noelle Adams is a different name for Claire Kent. Claire Kent is, I've been reading a lot of her books over the past couple of years. I very much have enjoyed her Kindled series and her Hold series. And the Escorted series, like I really love that. And Noelle Adams, though, is, I believe, like the original pen name or name for this author, and Claire Kent was one that was added to do her kind of like apocalyptic and like sci-fi ones. So this is the first book I've read under this title, though. But since I joined her ARC team for the Claire Kent books, she's also offering us Noelle Adams, and I decided to give it a try because I was like, I really like her writing, so let's go. So The Girlfriend is the first in a series that's going to be called like The Companions, and I guess this kind of spins off from like another series which I haven't read, but our heroine's name is Giselle, and she works for this company where you can literally like rent a companion, whether it's someone to be a tour guide for you, whether it's someone to be your companion like while you go traveling, whether it is someone to pretend to be a girlfriend or to be whatever, but there's not supposed to be any sex involved because this is not a escort service or anything like that. Of course, we're gonna have more than that going on with it, but Steve knows Giselle's friends, and one of her friends, he actually like used to be a companion, and so they get introduced, and Steve decides to hire her basically for the whole summer to be his pretend girlfriend while he is at this, like, he's doing this certain work project where he's going to have to see his who wasn't really his girlfriend, but who actually kind of like took advantage of him in certain ways. Like, it was an older woman who just really hurt him a lot, and so he doesn't want her hitting on him, he doesn't want her thinking she's gotten one up on him, so he hires Giselle, and Giselle's like, cool, this will be a great way, I'm going to earn a lot of money doing this job, and also like she'll be able to get a lot of her studying done because she's going to school as well, because she really just has to sit around this beautiful apartment that he, you know, is where they're living for these 3 months. So this was really cute. It was kind of a slow burn romance between them. Obviously, feelings grow. One of the things I noticed as like a crossover between, you know, the different pen names, there still is a lot of like men thinking they're not good enough for the woman. This author definitely puts that in whatever genre she's writing, she puts that in there, because Steve just feels like there's no way this beautiful, smart woman would want more from him than to be like hired to be his girlfriend. So there's a lot of miscommunication. That's not my favorite, but I usually give like Claire Kent a lot of a pass for this because I really love her books like that. However, like those ones take place in very like high stress situations where literally it's the end of the world or they're on a prison planet, you know? And so this one, it was kind of like, just say what you feel already, right? But I still had a great time, and it was a short book, and it was also relatively low angst, and it had a very pining hero. The hero was very much pining for her the whole time. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it was a 2.5 on the Spice rating, and I definitely will be reading more of Noelle Adams' like backlist of books, for sure. Next, I read Blurred Lines by Mila Crawford. This book was one that I came across when I was making some of my oddly specific, like, kinky videos that you guys have been loving, which thank you so much. If you have a video idea for one of my oddly specific videos or a kinky rec video, I have now like a form listed down below where you can request a video, just to kind of put all the video requests in one place for me. It makes things easier. But this one showed up for, this one came up for Somnophilia, I think is the list that I saw it on. I think that's the list I saw it on. But this is a short, quick one. It's actually like number 7 in a series, but I wasn't lost or confused at all. But this one is about Finn, who is going to get revenge on this woman who, we don't fully know what happened, but we know that it was bad. This woman had done horrible things to him, and she has her daughter with her. Her daughter, I think, is like 18, 19, 20. I don't remember how old she was. And so this man murders her mother and then takes her captive and makes it sound like he's just going to absolutely torture her until he's ready to finally kill her. But he really ends up just like sexing the fuck out of her, and it ends up being pretty consensual, besides their first interaction where he gives her kitty a good time while she's sleeping. So I believe that's the somnophilia part of it. But it's very interesting. I know some people, I mean, obviously it is still a form of a non-consensual event because she didn't consent before she went to sleep. We actually have one later on this list where we have consensual, like, somnophilia, where the person is pretending to be asleep, but this is one where, like, she doesn't wake up. And I don't know, I just can't fathom that in certain aspects of, like, I don't know, whatever. But there was a lot of kinkiness in this one, but there also was, like, she immediately believed him about everything he said about her mother and was willing to just be, like, fucked into oblivion by him. And there was, like, blood play, and there was breath play, and there's even more that are listed, like, the author lists them all. And I know it was a novella, but literally he, like, played with her pussy a little bit, and she was like, I totally believe you that my mom was horrible. And, like, that was it. It was done. It was also one of those where, like, the hero doesn't let anyone touch him. And when he touched her, he realized, like, oh, I can touch her and it doesn't bother me. So it was one of those. But I didn't hate this. Like, I like that it is a rec for some of those like spicier kinks, you know, like I said, including like breath play and blood play and stuff. But I still gave it a 3, even though it was a 5 in the spice. Like, we went hardcore with it. Next, I read another book in the Shadow Market collection, which, if you don't know, the Shadow Market books, these are a part of the Kickstarter that Katie Robert, Jenny Norbeck, Adriana Herrera, Sierra Simone, they were all a part of. And I signed up for the Kickstarter to get the paperback versions, but we all got our ebooks a couple weeks ago, so we can start reading them, and I've been like peppering one in at a time. So this one was the Hellmouth Guardian's Lover, and this was Adriana Herrera, and this features Ariadne and August, and they're actually second chance romance. They were lovers for a long time. August thought things were getting too dangerous for them to be together because of reasons in the playing, and he broke up with her, and so she turned this all into like feminist rage that how dare he do this. Well, now they're in a scenario where he like needs her help again, so August reaches out to her. He is a snake demon is what it was said, and when he gets aroused, he turns snake-like, so he can't hide his arousal, and Ariadne really likes that about him. And so they do some angry fucking, and then they do some love fucking, and there's a lot of fun kinks that are done in this one. It's definitely a lot spicier than the other one I had read before, and I had a good time with it, even though, like, man, I'll say this again, like, I didn't realize these Shadow Market books were going to be so short, and I just feel like I don't get quite enough out of them, even for being novellas, because the world is like so rich, and each time we're having to get introduced to new characters and new, you know, all of that, and I feel like I don't get enough time to appreciate it, if that makes sense. But I gave this one 3.5 stars, and it was a 4 on the spice rating. And this did have something cool though, because this snake demon, he has a like venom that is an aphrodisiac, so when he either is like licking her pussy or kissing her or biting her, it gives her this like euphoria in the sexy time. So very interesting. I continued reading some monster naughtiness because The Hunter had just come out by Jenica Snow, and I hadn't read The Beast yet, so I went back first and I read The Beast, which is just like it seems. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but in this series, which is called Monsters and Beauties, the beasts are going to stay beasts. So this one, it's Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and it's Belle, and her father has to sell her into an arranged marriage with him, and she's supposed to give him heirs, is what's supposed to happen. And so, but like, she gets there and she realizes that he's been preparing his home for her for a long time. Like, he has bought, one of my favorite little tidbits is he bought every smut novel that the entire kingdom possessed and put in the library for her, because he knows that she likes reading romance and smut, and so he fills the library with smut. And I was like, you know, it's a romance author writing when the hero fills the library with smut. But there is, you know, these books definitely border on the bestiality aspect, although to me, like, I don't know, true bestiality is more when they have the mind of an animal too, so it doesn't ick me out that he was beastly. But, you know, we are dealing with lots of fluid, we have breeding kink, we have like some primal play, so just be aware of that. It's Jenica Snow. If you've, like, I hope like The Beast isn't your very first Jenica Snow, but if it is, and you are like, oh, I really like monster banging, like, this is monster banging for you, okay? This is beast banging. And I gave it 4 stars, and this was a 4 on the spice scale for me, because this one, for it only being 120 pages, like, this one did have a bit of a slower burn with them, because the beast is trying to win her over. He's not just trying to pounce on her. Whereas then I read The Hunter next, which is a Red Riding Hood retelling, and this one is a captor-captive one, so we do have some more of the like dubious consent and even a little bit of like non-consensual aspects to this one, because he has kidnapped her. So in this one, her name is Marcella, and she goes to Alaska because her grandmother has died, and so she goes to, like, I think she goes to her grandmother's cabin is what happens. And the wolf, who his name is Wolf in this one, he finds her up there, and he's like, this is my mate. And so he kidnaps her and takes her to his lair, and like, she tries to run all the time, and he'll drag her down, and when she's sleeping, he'll cuddle up behind her and like masturbate on her. So that's like the somnophilia parts of this one. And in this one too, like she'll pretend to be asleep because she likes it, but she doesn't want him to know, even though like he can smell it. So yeah, breeding kink in this one too. It's all the nasty things. He's very wolf-like. I beg of you, authors, when you write, like, I know a wolf has a snout. Please don't say snout when he's sniffing her lady bits. Like, when I hear snout, I can't do it. Like, I can picture him being a wolf and, like, know that that's happening, but there's something about snout in a romance where I'm just like, I don't want a snout anywhere near me. But I still had fun with this one too. And so this one was a 4-star, because here's the thing too, like, I'm not expecting more than like a fun, goofy time out of this. Like with Jenn Snow, I have my expectations set right where they need to be, you know? So they're usually always a 4 for me, sometimes even a 5 if like the romance really gets to me. These ones, the romance doesn't really get to me. It's more of like she finally gives in to the pleasure. Sorry, this is bothering me so bad. When I don't wear a thick enough shirt, my microphone just bounces all over. So this one was 4-star, but this one was a 5 on the spice scale because we did have more kinks involved in this one. All right. Now we get into one that was much more serious and kind of triggering and gut-wrenching, but I really liked it. So I read His Pretty Little Burden by Nikki Harris. This is book 4 in the Kids of the District series, and I know I was kind of naughty and jumped to this book. Well, let me give you a tiny bit of story time before I tell about this. So I was given Our Thing and what's the second one? Cosa Nostra as a gift because someone really wants me to read this series and I want to read it. And actually Our Thing is on my TBR for this month. And I was planning to read this. And then I saw some people posting about this book and what the tropes were. And I was like, ooh, I really want to read that. And so I'm an impulsive girl and I started reading it. And I was in love with it. So don't panic. I absolutely am going back to the beginning 100%. And I'm going to be doing it very soon. I plan to read all these. But the way she has the series, the first 2 books are about one couple, and then one book is about one couple, and then these next 2 are about the same couple. So this one kind of had a cliffhanger, but the author even says it has a happy for now. I mean, they aren't super happy when this one's over, but like they are together. They've went through a lot. Like this book, we went through it, and this book has a crazy setup. I heard that the book had like a really big age gap and it was kind of taboo, and then it had some like dynamic play in it, and I saw some quotes from it and I was like, I'm reading it. But this one starts with Fawn. Yes, she has a horrible name and we all make fun of it when it comes about, and she is pregnant. She believes, and this is a key point, she believes she was impregnated by her boyfriend the night he died. She does not remember. She woke up and her boyfriend was dead in the room. He had fallen on a coffee table and been like impaled by part of it. Somehow it was a glass table. I don't know, whatever. She woke up. She doesn't remember. It appears that she had done a lot of drugs. And 2 of her foster brothers were also there that night. And there's a whole bunch of things. These are things we're finding out. But what she does is she has heard like who her father is, and so she goes to see Clay, who she believes is an associate of her father. What she doesn't know is he's actually an enemy of her father, because she is from one mafia and he's from a different one. And so when this pregnant, basically teenager shows up, she's only 18 or barely 18, either one, she's very close to that, shows up. And she wasn't able to, she didn't want to get rid of her baby because she thought it was her boyfriend's and he's dead, but she also doesn't want to raise the baby and she doesn't want him to grow up in foster care. So all these reasons why she's looking for her dad, because she's hoping her dad would raise her baby for her. And Clay is like, if this is true, if she's actually the daughter of my enemy, I have possibly his heir, who would be the child. If it's a boy, I possibly have my enemy's heir in my hands. Now, our hero, Clay, he's married. He is in a mafia arranged marriage with his friend, basically they're partners. She's a lesbian. They do share partners sometimes, never together, but they have had like a joint mistress before. It's very interesting. And I did not know these parts of it when I was starting the book, so I was immediately like, uh-oh, am I going to feel like this is cheating? I absolutely didn't. I mean, it is in the, like, he's married, but it isn't, because even like his wife, his, you know, gay wife, she wants him to be happy. And we see that, and it doesn't feel like a farce. Like, she has absolutely no interest in ever having anything with her husband. The only reason she's married to him is because she can't control her family business and the mafia parts of it if she doesn't have the backing of her husband. And like, they both think this is stupid. Like, Clay is like, this is shit, but you know, he's gonna stay married to her because he loves her in that way of like, I want you to be able to be successful by having you be married to me. Anyway, so that's a setup, but he is married, and immediately there's this attraction between him and Fawn. And also he notices she's very submissive just when he is like ordering her to do certain things. She quickly realizes she's more being held captive than being a guest until they find her father. And as those secrets come out, obviously she realizes how stupid she was to just show up at this guy's house not knowing anything, but there it is. And I loved how he fell for her. Like, he absolutely does not want to fall for this woman. But the more time he spends with her, and the more sexually attracted he is to her and how like perfectly they fit, the more he's like kind of disgusted with himself and his world that she's been put in this position. And also, the more details he starts sussing out about her, about the night that she got pregnant, there are some serious bombshells to come out of that. And that mystery of what happened to her was like, it hurt so bad, but was so good. And this girl, like, she's completely a pawn through so much of this. You know, it's almost like she feels so weak. But where we are going to be at going into the next book, which doesn't come out till October, I'm desperately trying to get an arc for this book because I want to know what happened so badly. I'm very hopeful for what will happen. Now, the trigger warnings for this, which are kind of spoilers, but, you know, I don't hold back trigger warnings just because they're a spoiler, but it is going to spoil some things when I tell you what they are. But that's okay, because you have to know them. There is depictions of rape, PTSD, cheating, and this is where I said kind of, because again, I explained the cheating scenario. It's up to you whether you think it's cheating or not. Like, again, by the letter of cheating, it is, but they're both doing it and they both know about it. So is it cheating? I don't know. There is violence, death, gore, and there is miscarriage in this book. So I have to share that trigger warning, but it's there. There was also some absolutely beautiful moments of hurt, comfort in here, and watching this hero, like, seriously, like where he starts in the beginning, where he's like, this girl is so dumb, she just handed herself to me, she has no idea how easy she's just made me to take out my enemy, to the point at the end where he's like, I love this woman and she's been through so much, like, will I ever be worthy of her, type of thing. And I love it. So I gave this book 5 stars. It had a 4 on the spice scale. Their dynamic play was amazing. So yeah, it's great. Age difference. He's 34, 32. I can't remember. He's in the lower half of 30 and she's 18. So it's a big one. All right. Next I had my DNF. We won't spend too much time on this. I'd found this arc on Edelweiss. I don't get a ton of arcs from Edelweiss, but sometimes I get approval better. And I was just trying to pick some random ones on there. And so I grabbed Average Joe. It seemed like an interesting setup. I ended up DNFing it because the characters were too frustrating and I was at 40% and there was no sign of them like changing anytime soon. And I was like, you know, why am I forcing myself into this shit? I DNF stuff. So yeah, this one was about this woman who she was very close with her neighbor. And when her neighbor dies, her nephew comes because the house has been left to him, and I think he's a couple years younger than her, but he is a felon. He's been to prison, and she is very much against felons because she's dated one before and they're just so horrible. but they have like a one night stand like after the funeral, and he's like super into her, and she just is so prejudiced against him. It's ridiculous. And like continually they have hate sex, and then she's like, I can't be with you, you're a criminal. And she just bounces him back and forth. And then, but also he's like rude about what her job is, because she runs these coffee shops where the women like serve coffee shops like or coffee like in their bikinis. And he's like, oh my God, that is so just demeaning and horrible. And she's like, yeah, but we make a lot of money. And you've come, like, he had come to get coffee from there like 4 times before he found out she owned the coffee shop. So they were both just annoying. And I've never tried to read anything by this author before, so I don't know if it's a normal thing, but I just didn't like it. So I DNF'd it, so I don't have anything more to say about it. Okay, then I read The Oath by Jill Bondarchuk, and this is the second book in the Grey Tower Chronicles. The first book was The Shield and the Thistle, which I read last year, which was a time travel novel that reminded me of shades of Outlander, but with a heroine who is a bit more useless and a bit more annoying than a Claire. I know a lot might be controversial because a lot of people think Claire's annoying, but anyway, I enjoyed that book enough that I was super intrigued by what this second book was, because there's something that happens at the end of the first book which makes it so that these time traveling lovers can be together, and it leads to Malcolm McKinnon, the Laird, making an oath to a witch that he would marry her daughter and keep her safe from witch hunters and from anyone who would come after her. But we start this book and he's reluctant to follow through. He has a timeline. He has until, I think, the purple flowers bloom by the river, whatever it was. And if he doesn't, like, he will forfeit, he will die for not doing it because he made his oath. And he's put it off because he doesn't know if this oath was worth it, like if it will actually lead his brother to a happily ever after. Again, I don't want to spoil anything from the first book because the first book had its issues. It was also the author's first book, just in general. But it was still kind of clever, and I liked it. So I don't want to spoil anything for you. I want you to read it. But then with this one, he ends up waiting until the last minute to fulfill his oath. And as he's on his way, because he feels this tug towards Cora, is her name, is the name of the heroine in this one. And she's living at her family's cottage in the woods, and she's starving. Like, she's starving. She isn't able to feed herself. She's hiding. She doesn't want people to know where she is because she's worried about, you know, being shunned or all of these things. And basically, like, Malcolm, like, falls off his horse, like, 100 yards from her cabin because he didn't make it to her in time. And she finds him and brings him inside, and then she ends up hearing what's happening. So obviously he's like, I'm sorry, you don't have a choice. You have to marry me because I need to be the laird for my people. And so she's like terrified to go, but she's like, my mother has forced us into this because I don't want you to die because of it. So she goes with. She's very nervous. The people are suspicious of her, but they're also thankful. So it's this weird place because they all know, like, all the people in the keep, in this clan, they know what Moira or Cora's mother did for Venora is the name of the mother. They know what she did for their clan, but they're still suspicious of witchcraft, and they think all of these things, not knowing that, you know, Cora does 99% only good things, and she goes about not even trying to woo the people, but just trying to make their lives better without them even knowing it. And like, as they start to know it, they have this beautiful, like, thankfulness for them. So this does start out as only a marriage of, like, oath, and they sleep in separate chambers, and, you know, they both are attracted to each other, but they hide it. Cora also has scarring down. You can also, like, see it in the art, which I probably don't have up anymore because, like I said, I take down. But she has, like, scarring over half of her body because she was partially burned at the stake when she was young, which is why her mother is so fearful of her. And it is this, like, reminder always of what happened to her. So It is a very real danger that others might try to burn her at the stake sometimes, so it's important she has Clan McKinnon. There is also other paranormal aspects to this. This is actually called a paranormal historical, like fantasy or historical romance. And I gasped out loud at some of the other paranormal elements that showed up because I wasn't expecting the one. Like, I thought it was one thing. And then when it's explained what it actually was, I was like, oh my gosh, duh. Because if you read any other Scottish paranormal things, you might know some of the like myths and legends that are specific to Scotland that may be similar to other places. But once you know what it is, you're like, oh, duh, of course it's that. And that's what I felt. And I loved it. So this I gave a 4.5 star. It was a 2.5 on the spice rating because, again, this was a slow burn, so be prepared. But there are some very beautiful, sexy times with them, and just, oh, it's so pretty. It's so great. And the setup for the third book, which is going to be called The Assassin and the Slave, which isn't slated to come out until May of next year, but I'm hoping it will be earlier. We'll see. I was like, oh my God, when I found out who the assassin and the slave were going to be, because I was like not expecting it at all. So very much impressed. I thought the writing was better. I still think the pacing isn't the best. That was an issue I had in the first one, but I was so much more sucked into this one. And I didn't have an audiobook for this one either. The first one does have an audiobook, and I loved it. So yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars, 2.5 on the spice scale. There is trigger warnings for, we do see the burning at the stake of her. There is an assault, not sexual assault, but like there's assault in here. Well, I guess it is attempted essay. There is attempted essay as well. Glad that I thought about that, because one of the people, yeah, death of parents in this as well. So yeah, loved it. Highly, highly recommend, actually. Really liked it. Okay, finally, a physical book that I have. I'm continuing reading the, I just forgot what the series name was. Deception and Discipline. It's right on the front. This is book 2 in the series. Golden Angel has the 4th and final book coming out this month, and I'm going to be getting a book box with an arc of it. And so I'm trying to get prepared for this series. I'm really liking it. This series is like, I wouldn't call them like full-on BDSM, although this one had more aspects, so I would call this one BDSM. But it is BDSM based around like discipline. This one ends up being a marriage of like forced marriage of convenience, because Josie has always loved Lord Elijah's younger brother, and Josie gets a note that says it's from Joseph and asking her to meet him outside. So she goes, and she gets assaulted by a man out there. And Elijah had seen her leave, and he follows her. And he stops the man from assaulting her, but like her bodice has been ripped open. So when other people come running out, when they hear the commotion, they see her clutching herself and Elijah standing there. And even though they explain what happened, they're like, well, then the note has Joseph's name on it, so either she needs to marry Joseph or she needs to marry Elijah, or she's ruined. And she's like, no, I don't need to. And her family's like, honey, you do. Now, the thing is Joseph, he's in love with someone else. He isn't in love with Josie. And so Elijah, he offers to marry her. He wasn't planning to marry, but he's like, hey, this is fine. She's beautiful. She might be feisty, but like I have known her most of our lives. Like, we'll do it. And so they get married, and of course discover the sexual parts of things. But see, Josie is also in on knowing that there's a spy and a traitor and stuff like that going on, which is carrying through the series. And Elijah and Joseph are cousins to Evie, who is like the heroine who's going to be in the 4th book, and their uncle is the spy master for England. So like she's involved in helping find him, and Elijah is like, no, you're not going to have any part of this anymore. And Josie's like, watch me, which leads to some scenes of her needing to be disciplined for disobeying her husband, and putting herself in danger is obviously the more important one. Like, she's already been assaulted once, and she's putting herself in these places. And I had a great time. I'm enjoying this series more and more. Like, I'm really hyped to read the 3rd one, which is A Season for Smugglers. And and I can't wait to read the fourth one. Like, I'm really excited for the series, and I hope that it gets the attention that Golden Angel wants it to. And yeah, I think if you like historicals and you like a little bit of spank and a tickle, you'll like these. Like, they're perfectly pleasant and wonderful. All right, then I have 2 more arcs to talk about. We're doing a great job today, Jen, getting through everything. All right, I read an arc for Gracies Mom by Misty Walker. This is going to be a part of Songs of Sin, which are going to be taboo novels loosely based off of songs. This one's based off of Stacy's Mom, which if you don't remember, you should go listen to it immediately. But Dax, he is roommates with Gracie, and he has had a thing for Gracie's mom, Abby, for the whole 4 years that they have lived together. Now, Gracie, she's had a crush on Dax this whole time too, and she's actually hoping that once they graduate and they don't live together anymore, she can be with Dax. But Dax agrees to come and stay with her come to stay with Abby and Gracie during spring break, and he's going to use this chance to make his move. He has been biding his time, and he was waiting for graduation, but he's like, I don't want to wait too long and then not have a reason to see Gracie's mom anymore. And so he lays all his cards out on the table, and it leads to them having a secret fling that leads to secret dating, that leads to a lot of angst and hurt feelings, in my opinion. So the good about this is extremely sexy. Dax is a dirty talker. He's going for what he wants. He is helping reawaken the sexiness in Abby. She's only ever been with her ex-husband. There are toys that get used, like interesting positions. Like, it is great. He is so loving of her body. He absolutely loves her. And I love that Abby was getting to see that. I mean, the things I didn't like is that I really didn't like how many times she says no to him and hurts him. Like, I know it. I know her daughter has issues with it because she likes Dax and she thinks that it's gross on both of their parts. But it leads to Dax's feelings being hurt multiple times. And I don't like that when either character has to be rejected so many times, right? It just makes me not like the person who is rejecting them, and we don't want to feel that way, you know? So it was tough for me, and because this was an arc, I gave it 4 stars. It's probably more of a 3. There's a trigger warning for assault, and this is the one. It's not sexual assault. Our hero actually gets assaulted, as in, like, something bad happens to him. So I want to warn you for that. And then the last book that I finished yesterday is an arc for Captured by a Sinner, which comes out on the 12th, which I think is Monday. It's today the 10th, 11th, 12th. I think it's Monday. This comes out. This is the final book in the Sinner series by Michelle Hurd, although she has in the back of this one listed that there'll be more spin-offs in this world too. So that'll be great. I think Edge of Salvation is going to... Anyway, point being, this one obviously is a very anticipated one. I've been anticipating it since book 2 or 3. And it's about Victor and Rosaline. I'm not sure, but Victor and Rose. And Victor takes her captive after they need to attack the Sicilian... Is it the Sicilians? Or the Cosa Nostra? I'm not sure. But either way, we know that her uncle and grandfather, who she'd been living with, because her father and mother were already dead, she is 17, she's a week from turning 18, and she's like on the phone with her friend when the priesthood, which is all 5 of our heroes, they break in and they brutally kill her grandfather and uncle in front of her, and she only knows the good of them. Like, they've been good to her. She doesn't know that they were sex trafficking people and raping women and selling them. Like, she doesn't know that. And so all she sees is she sees these men murder her family in front of her, and then Victor doesn't, like, she has no family left or anyone to go to. So Victor takes her to his home, and he's going to keep her. He was going to keep her till she's 18, but her 18th birthday is literally a week away. And he's like, well, that's not enough time. And so he makes the executive decision against the advice of family that he's going to keep her till she's 21. And she, of course, is very resistant to this. He does a lot of things to try to win her over. It's very obvious right at the beginning that like he falls for her, and he kind of makes it his mission over the next 3 years that he's going to make her fall in love with him, so that when he's time to make his word, that she'll want to stay with him. So this book takes place both like when in those first few months when he has her, and then when she turns 21. So how do I talk about this? I was disappointed in this book. I was just really disappointed in this book. I don't know what it is. Like, number one, I mean, all of this heroes in this series are secretly cinnamon rolls, and Victor is no different. Like, he tries to woo her so hardcore. But in the time jump where she goes from being 18 to 21, like, we know that Victor has just fallen more in love with her, but it feels like nothing's changed, because we're told she loves him too in her head, but she's like, but I can't forgive him. He murdered my parents or my family in front of me. I can't forgive him. I need to live on my own to decide. Now, while I agree with the part that to make sure she loves him, she needs to live on her own for a little bit, I don't agree with how she acts while she's with him for all this time. Because though she is technically a captive, like he makes her spend every night at his home in the guest room, she completely shuns everything around her, and it made her seem dumb, in my opinion. Like, so stupid. Like, this heroine, it broke my heart how dumb she was, because I didn't like it. Like, I honestly didn't like it. He offers to train her during the 3 years. No, I don't want to be around you. He offers to introduce her to his family, who lives, like, on the property. Like, they have homes there. His mother or aunt, I can't remember, who is the one who breaks up sex trafficking rings. She literally refuses to talk to any of his family for the 3 years she lives there. And then when we get to the part where she goes on her own, of course, like, Victor, he's devastated. Like, literally, he's a lump on the floor, which I understand is supposed to show his devotion, but it made him sloppy, and it really, like, took him down in my eyes. And, like, I hate saying that, you guys. You have no idea how much I hate saying it. I was so excited for Victor, and I was excited for this to be them, like, falling for each other. And, like, again, in this series, like, it makes it seem like it's so dark, but the things that are dark about it are what other people do. Like, this hero, he doesn't do anything dark to her. Like, he takes her captive, and he does, like, make it known that he's into her. Like, he makes it known that he's into her, but he never pushes things too far. And, like, I wanted him to, you know, like, I wanted this book to be darker, because there were such, like, trigger warnings at the beginning for what their relationship dynamic would be like, and it just didn't deliver for me. So what I did love, though, and what I'm pretty sure that the trigger warnings were for, is the last 15% of this book, they are exploring their kinks together, which I always love, okay? And that's where we get the trigger warnings for somnophilia, CNC, as well as, like, some other kinky things, because they start experimenting with their sex life. And so that's when, like, this, like, she pretends to be asleep, and then, like, he's gonna pretend to be asleep. Like, they're doing all of those fun things, but they happen right in the last 10% after, like, it's just right at the end. And I was so disappointed in this as an end. I'm sorry. I was. My favorite book will still probably be book 3 with Gabriel. That's probably still my favorite. I didn't dislike this. I think if you liked the other 4, you will like this. There are still some big trigger warnings, because, again, I said there's evil that the other people are doing. So when she's 21 and she moves out, nobody did any research. Nobody looked into anything. Nobody's found out any information about what the state of New York is in the last 3 years. They just let her leave and go. And so, of course, the shit hits the fan, and it's immediately like, Victor has to save me. Bitch, you lived with him for 3 years where he offered to train you and prepare you for being on your own, and you shunned it all. And then what happens? Victor has to save me because I was a stupid bitch who walked into this. Okay, I'm not being nice because I'm so disappointed that she didn't take advantage of any of the things she had offered. Who cares if you still think this is your enemy? Why aren't you learning about his enterprises? Why aren't you getting to know his family member and know the connections that he has? And she just stays in her room and reads her books that he gave her and plays with the puppy that he gave her and puts her head in the sand for 3 years. I was disappointed. So I gave it 4 stars because it's an arc. And I loved so much. Like, it was sweet, you guys. Their romance is so sweet, and that will win some people over, okay? It will. But she didn't have a reason for being this dumb, okay? It's way different than Gabriel's woman, who I can't remember her name, who she was literally beaten and mistreated and made to be a slave like her whole life. So now she's with a hero who has to show her what her worth is. Rosie had every advantage, and now she's just this. So I was disappointed. So I gave it 4 stars, and it was a 3.5 on the spice scale. Yes, the kinkiness at the end was good, and it brought it up a little bit for me, but... So yeah. Anyway, that is my week 36. Next week, you may not get a weekly wrap-up. It may be 2 weeks before you get one because I'm going to Wanderlust. And I'm supposed to be back on Sunday, but I also don't know how much reading I'll get done. As I'm moving on, I'm going to visit my parents Sunday and Monday, and then I have a doctor's appointment before I go, and then I have to go. So, I mean, I know I'll read something, but I don't know that when I get back on Sunday, I will do a weekly wrap-up. I might wait till the next week, so be prepared for that. But I'll have some other great videos going up because I'm pre-filming those today. So thank you so much for watching. Again, if you'd like to support my channel, please check my links down below. If you want to recommend a book to me or request a video, those links are also down below, so you can do that there. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.